Welcome to the Foundation Series, your deep dive into startup compensation with industry leaders from across the startup world. Join me, Matt McFarlane, a people operations leader turned compensation specialist, as we uncover the strategies and practices driving success in tech startups around the world. Hear insights from heads of people, founders, and experts as we explore how to build robust compensation frameworks that not only fuel growth and retention, but do so in the dynamic startup environment that we all know and love. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Foundation Series. Today I'm joined by Shani Brisilovsky, who is the AI product lead at HRIS and a behavioral economics researcher. We're getting into how HR is leading organizations into the future when it comes to AI and how that's helping us throw out the old HR routine. Plus, we talk about how your HR tech stack will enable all of it. Let's go. Shani, welcome to the Foundation Series. I'm excited to have you here. I want to dive straight in with the most interesting question from one of the questions I've been most keen to ask you. So you're the AI lead on the product side at HRIS. I've got to ask, what are the things you're doing with the current pace of change to just keep up to date with the constant stream of updates and new tools and just the general change in, that I feel like we're all facing at work when it comes to AI at the moment?
Yeah, the pace is really as fast as I can remember. It's really remind me of my early days as a professional when it was like so much thing to learn. And for me, it's first of all is to be really conscious about the fact that we need to be up to date and that things are changing and to really put the effort and time into it. It's not something that is going to happen if you're not really looking for sources and trying to learn proactively and not waiting for somebody else to teach you that. So I like podcasts. It's my favorite platform and my favorite way to consume data. For me, it's really interesting to learn how people use AI in the day-to-day as a productivity tool, personal use as well, but also how people that building AI think about it and use it. So I love the content that the people from Anthropic, product people from Anthropic have, because it's both learning from the source and not like secondhand, and also to see how they use it. So some really creative and interesting ways to use the tool that I didn't think about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I follow the Anthropic team. They put out some incredible resources anyway, but you're right in the sense that it's kind of nice sometimes not to get it filtered through influencers or something like that. But they do a great job actually of their team of making sure that they are talking actively about how they're using it. I'm not a big fan of like Twitter necessarily, but unfortunately it is an incredible source of information when it comes to a lot of those sorts of things. And they're super active, which is awesome. Something that you mentioned before we started recording is that you're doing a master's. Talk to me a bit about that and how that's also influencing the way that that AI shows up at work.
Yeah, so I'm doing a master's in behavioral economics, and starting doing a master's and going to academy when AI is exploding can feel a bit counterintuitive. But for me, it's an amazing experience. First of all, you hear a lot of people also in these podcasts I mentioned talking about going back to first principles, because technology can change and it will change, and we don't know even how, like in so many ways, but human behavior, what motivates us, the decision-making processes will stay the same. And this is something I think that is really important to really dive into and to learn, and not just be on the chase after the new technology and new solution, because these are the things that are really in the core of the way we work. And also, in the past couple of weeks, doing my master's, when I started, there was not as much research about these topics. And in the past year or so, there's more and more and really interesting stuff. Especially in MIT, they have the AHA, Advanced Humans with AI Research Center. And they have their conferences online, and they have amazing research that they're doing about the tools themselves, how people interact with them, and things that I think is really important to learn to think about as people that are using those tools, but also as people that are building those tools. It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Wow, there's a couple of incredible resources there. I'll make sure to link them in the show notes. So, all right, we've talked about the pace of change. We've talked about some of the ways in which you're kind of keeping up with that pace. How are you staying informed, learning about things as they're evolving? How does that start to translate into the role of the HR professional? So, you're speaking to them day in and day out because you're obviously part of the team that's building, ultimately a product and service of them. I'd love to know, like, how is the HR role evolving from this research that you're undertaking? Where is it going to?
So we see a big shift in HR teams from trying to use the AI to automate processes, to streamline them, to take all the admin and manual work that they had. But now we see more and more deep team culture thoughts, and the fact that HR teams are not just using AI to make the processes better, but they're also the team that in charge of all the changes. And AI is changing cultures of workspaces. It's changing the roles. It changes how people work. And HR teams are the one that are equipped to do that, to support those changes. So they have the like parallel challenges that they need to lead the change in their organization, but also do the change and lead the change themselves. We saw a really interesting announcement by Atlassian that all their HR transformation, all their AI transformation is under the HR team, or there's a people team. So something that, when you think about it, again, going back to first principle, when you think about the team that needs to lead the change, it's HR. But for some reason, until now, it's not like the natural way to do that. It may be the R&D or operation team or something like that. But we see these kind of changes, and it's just like the start. And we definitely believe that this is the way to go. That the AI is not just about productivity in the day-to-day. It's changing how people work, how teams are working, measured, and how you build organizations. So it's really exciting and challenging to see that.
Yeah, I can imagine. That was the first kind of example that popped to my mind as you were saying it, is that Atlassian has now expanded the remit from just people, well, not just people, because that's a broad space as it is, but people to now AI transformation. I think Zapier as well, I think, is another like famous example of a company where the CPO role took on that transformation. So by the sounds of it, they're not alone. There are obviously some famous cases, but you're actually seeing this transformation happen more broadly. I know I can think of a few. I've actually had some guests on this podcast who have also kind of taken ownership of how AI is adopted across the workforce and how it transforms their ways of work. What do you think are some of the big challenges that the teams with this like even broader remit are facing as they're kind of taking on that mantle?
So first of all, change is hard. We talked about behavioral economics. So the default bias is one of the most basic one. People don't like to change. So leading change is hard. And leading change is so transformative. And we're in the middle of the wave. We don't know yet what is happening. So I think that some teams, some companies and organizations trying to think about exactly the solution, where they need to be, what is the like checklist you need to do in order to be AI ready. But as we see it, like the most successful teams are the ones that are changing their mindset. They're in a change mindset. They're open to like whatever will come. They're flexible. And I think this is really the key, because things are going to change so much, in ways we don't even know how.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Are there any examples that can be obviously anonymous, but are there any great examples you can share that you've seen some of this transformation starts to take shape in the research you've been doing?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of the people processes that we currently have, having the performance review twice a year, the comp cycles are related to the talent mapping, all the engagement surveys, they have their cadence, and some teams take it for granted, right? It will be every 6 months, every quarter, but those cadence started, the pace started because of limitation of the operation, because it's hard to do the performance review and collect the data and analyze it and do all the analysis about the comp. It takes time in the way companies currently work. So these are the processes that people have, and sometimes until you get to the actual result, it's too late because your talent already left, or didn't see something that you had to pay attention earlier. So the teams that are more successful are not just changing the tools, but changing the mindset. Not letting the ways old tools worked to decide like how their new processes are. So they're more up to date. They have weaker feedback loops. When they have something that is they have an alert, they need to pay attention to something, they do it like on the spot. They're not waiting and solving things in hindsight. So these are really exciting, and it's really shifted the way we think also about how we build the system, and being more creative with it and thinking about what is really needed and not how is it all way of doing stuff, and let's just make it like shiny with AI, have like AI dust all over it.
Yeah, gosh, you got my brain like whirring, because you're so right. Like the more you were talking, the more I was thinking about all of these, like, I guess just like the status quo of the way systems and operations have run within people teams. I mean, I obviously spend a lot of time focused on compensation, but I mean, often people teams have a calendar, right? Like it's a fairly rigid thing. Like you said, we might run an engagement survey twice a year, and it's, we might do our compensation cycle once a year. We've got all of these like cadences. And actually the shift, by the sounds of it, is more to like real time or in the moment, and how do we make sure the systems, or I guess we're seeing now this shift to systems be able to support that. You're right. Like I remember, I don't know how many times I've either spoken to or even been in organizations where they were like, and this is something they can obviously do when they're small. They're like, oh, we review employee salaries at their anniversary. And I was like, gosh, that sounds horrible. Like you're just constantly running this process that's never ending. Why not batch it into one thing? Because obviously operationally it's much easier. Now though, you're sort of talking about, this future where actually you do have the technology to be able to handle these sorts of processes on the fly and still preserve fairness and consistency and efficiency and all of these things that are important to the business.
Exactly. And it's really, we see really creative ways of doing that. Like when people don't need to wait to have an analyst go over the data, and when they can dig into the data themselves and ask questions and suddenly have insights that are much more interesting than the few things they plan to measure just because this is what the time frame allowed to.
Yeah. So okay, no, I think so. For me, I think it's relevant, definitely. So I mean, for me, the interesting thing about AI, and this is a topic that comes up as well, is like how are we preserving the human element of our work and of our relationships and of how we get things done, and not letting AI be the default for that or to take some of these things away. How are you seeing this question kind of emerge in the workplaces that you're speaking to, and how are people thinking about, making sure that they're not letting AI take the things that a human should be doing?
So I think it's a really valid question, and I think we deal about it a lot. I started my career in healthcare startups, in different areas and verticals, and working on AI features and capabilities almost a decade ago, when it was not as common. We saw the same challenges and objections in the healthcare world, and because clinicians, similar to people teams, to HR teams, came to do something for people, helping people, making them improve their lives, saving lives, and both teams ended up with a day of work that is full of admin and full of manual work and is full of documentation. And the magic of AI, as I see it, is really in improving the experience and taking away all the admin, taking away all the manual things that there's no real value of a human really doing that. And we want to free the time to do the more the thing that the computer, the machine cannot replace, the conversation, the deep dives, the deep thinking, the strategy. And it's really important also, I think, in the way we think about it, and we're building our products, starting from the ground up, starting from the day-to-day, from the admin, from the noise, all the questions, and you like that you have the transparent work that nobody sees, but it happened, and it takes up all your time, and leave the time to the more important work, or more the work that is like management training, leadership training, strategy, training this manager on this hard conversation they're going to have. So this is the thing that today a lot of the HR teams don't have time to, because they're dealing with all the rest.
Because they're caught up with it.
They have on their plate. Yeah.
I still remember really vividly this talk a couple of years ago from, I think his title was futurist, which is just the most interesting title, but someone who kind of talked about how, and actually it was in a healthcare context, but talking about how AI and robotics is going to revolutionize that space. And it wasn't about taking away the role of the doctor or the nurse or anything like that. It was like, they're going to be really good at the diagnostic side of things. They're going to be really good because they've obviously got all of the information, for all of the medical data and the information and whatever that they need around the world. Their ability to like understand the symptoms that you've got and be able to like reference all that information in the data and do it really quickly is second to none. Obviously, a human's never going to be able to compete with that. The other thing that was really interesting is that actually from a diagnostic perspective, and this probably ties into your master's, is that people apparently seem much more comfortable telling a robot about their symptoms than they do a human because they're not likely to be judged by a robot. The robot's just like, yeah, whatever, tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. So you've kind of got part of what that doctor does, it's going away, but actually it's being done way more efficiently. And what it allows is the doctors, the nurses, those sorts of people to even like overemphasize on the human and the care aspect of it. And it's like, how do we make sure that you're comfortable? How do you feel, respected in whatever circumstance you're in? It's like, it's just it's an evolution of the role, but it's not a replacement. And I see that being very much the same within a HR context, right? Is that you're right. Like so many people teams are bogged down with the manual, the mundane, the admin, and actually they would much prefer to be doing things like helping their leaders be more successful or helping their people have a better experience at work. And I see this very much like you do, I think, is that it's gonna create a pathway for that as well.
A fun anecdote, let me know if it's relevant. So a fun anecdote, I worked on an AI product for emergency rooms. So you go in and you fill your symptoms, etc. So I did a tour in different emergency rooms to learn about the flow and the user journey and the parts that our product came into place in this process. And I was working with this head of emergency room, like big emergency room in the hospital, and he asked me after the tour that we did, do you know who's the most important person in the emergency room? Who's the first contact that tells us if there's somebody that really needs urgent help? And to be honest, part like, no, maybe that, the front office, they take all the forms, and he's like, no, not that as well. It's the guard that is the security guard that stands in the front door. And because he's part of the team, he's been there for so long. If somebody comes in, they didn't even get to the front office. But they see they're not okay, they need help. He's the one that's calling everybody and telling there's somebody that really needs urgent help and let's treat them. So, and this was the head of the emergency room, this really senior doctor that told that to me. So it's really stayed with me as the importance of looking for these human points, human connection throughout the process, and not just, being fixated on the formal steps that you have.
Yeah, I love it. It's awesome to hear those sorts of stories. I have another anecdote, but I'll leave it off at this moment. But all right, so we're talking about, like, I guess, more human moments. We're talking about automation and AI taking away some of these parts of the jobs that maybe we really struggle with, or kind of overtaking the things that we want to do. I really want to talk about how I guess like the current sort of suite of HRISs aren't maybe, enough for us right now in this current environment. I mean, I can reference in the show notes as well, and I'm sure you saw this piece published by A16Z, the big VC over in the US, and they did this piece called Workday's Last Workday and talked about how we are really, and I guess we're all in many ways led by the consumer technology experience, but we're now entering an environment where people really can interface with, an AI chat or something like that, and start to have access to a broad array of information and be able to do things in a much faster manner than they can than they could before. I'd really love to understand like how are the current crops of HRIS sort of falling short in that respect, and maybe with respect to that piece from A16Z, how do you think they're like maybe not keeping up with this role of the head of people that we're talking about?
First of all, it's all about the flexibility, modularity we've talked about, that all systems are very rigid. They were built years ago in a very structured way. And first of all, every organization is different and every organization is going through changes. It can be changes in headcount or in structure and departments and going into groups or task forces or changing the leveling. So the organization are this changing creature, naturally. The current systems are much too rigid and they don't adapt themselves to the different changes that organizations have, and as we said, are going to have. Technology is all the connectivity. So this day and age, it's all about connecting system. Like we have our connector in cloud, we have our MCP. So it's all about having few systems talking to each other and having a broader look at our team. So not just the performance review, not just the people data, the salary, etc., the compensation, but having their tasks in your task manager and having the sales data and seeing like a 360 picture of the team, and not just like very siloed data sources. And the last one is actually, we call it moving to doing the work for you. So like we said, looking at the broader user journey, the workflows of the people team, it really helped them connect the dots. So not just getting the report and be a great report, but I got it in seconds and 10 instead of days. But what do I do with it now? I need to share it in a deck to show it to the team, and I want to send it on Slack, and I want to create a PDF for a report. So this is really something that we're thinking about and adding to the product itself, connecting the dots. So working on the data, changing the messages, the announcement, the reminders, and taking away the invisible work, and thinking more like wider than just the system and what does it do, and thinking more about the day-to-day and the workflows and how can our system be part of that very easily and seamlessly, because nobody wants additional work and additional tasks to their day.
Yeah, I hear you. I was just having flashbacks then when you were talking about like siloing data and thinking about like, I don't know how many times I've been in companies where they change their departments, or, even sometimes just reporting lines, or they want, some weird change. And of course, like you mentioned at the start, with respect to, the HR calendar and the cadence of events, it's like often because of the limitation that we have from a system perspective, we have to work to the confines of that rather than the way we want our business to run and just be able to support that. So it sounds like this modularity, this flexibility is very much something that is kind of front of mind with how Shapes is being built. And I love, and I'm definitely keen to hear more about this idea of like how the system is doing the work. So this is sounding like Agentic AI, is it? It's sounding like being able to curate workflows and actually have some of this be handled by the system. Tell me a bit more about sort of how that's shaping up.
Yeah. So first of all, building the workflows, building the policies for you, taking the know-how that we have from our research, from our advisors and partners. So we really like infuse HR and people know-how into the system. So it's not a generic training deck that we're creating for our performance review cycle that is just coming up. It will have the backbone of the actual professional know-how. Having the alert, like we mentioned before, about something that is wrong, something that you want to pay attention to, and really closing the gap, sending the messages in advance, seeing who filled their timesheets and sending the smart nudges and being very personalized, creating onboarding flows that are not manual and are not generic, because every person is different. So running this smart onboarding flows and sending the personal message and making sure the manager is ready on time, and to flag the things that need to be taken care of and the things that are urgent. And yeah, because every piece of data have so much things that is relevant for, and so many point of view. In compensation, just the line, just the field of the salary, it can mean different to the leadership now trying to do simulate the growth, right? So we have the simulation tools in the product that in Vibe views you can just build your simulation, because this is not what you're planning. So now you can do it really quickly. And the same salary means something personal for the employee. It may be their value. They can be really happy and proud about it. They can be very disappointed. So how you announce this type of salary change or a bonus. And it can be something else very technical for the finance that need their report on time. And we have the data validation, for example. So we make sure the data is always accurate and no data is missing. So we do this work for you and flag it in time, and not when it's already too late and you need to go back and understand what is wrong. So this is just one example of one data point. And we have so many in the people world. So this is something that we really try to think about, the way all the dots connected, and every person, every role get the thing they needed on time with a relevant context. Yeah.
Oh, Shani, you're making me almost want to go back in-house and work in the people team with it. With this future you're describing, it sounds amazing. It sounds like it's, in so many ways, it's going to be incredible for the way it enables the people team. But then I just think about as well, data, the HRIS and then the data it contains has so often been such a sore point for credibility within the business as well. Its accuracy, how it gets updated, how it gets, managed, how it gets dealt with, all those sorts of things. And so it just sounds like this is a really big solve for a really core problem that often trips up a lot of people teams. What do you think is what's beyond that? What's, I know it's impossible to predict, where things are going and the pace of change, but where do you start to go? Where does your head go to, even beyond this and these workflows that you're thinking are going to be native to the system soon?
Yeah. So first of all, is really making all the workflows really seamless. So also traditional systems have their portal, desktop, web, and they have maybe the mobile app. And we have both, of course, but also being where the people are. So in the Slack, having our agent in the Slack, we have in Teams, in Microsoft Teams. So really making sure people don't need to work hard to get their data, but we are just there, and having all the permission in place also to do that, because it's not this is something that is really, really helpful for us to do this really quickly. And also going beyond the people team, and being really the data source and the data platform will have you manage your organization. And as we said at the beginning, now it's the team, but also all the agent and all the AI tool that we have. Because now if you want to measure productivity in traditional workspace, you have the salary, you have the cost of a specific team, you have their success metrics, and there you have it. But now when each team have their own agent, they're using tokens, the investment and the resources are now different, and they're shifting not necessarily having, my agent that is replacing me as a team member, but it's another resource that is really important to plan for. Circling back to the AI transformation. So it's not just about the people doing the work, but the tool that they have and the agent that's working with them to do that. And it's something that we already see some teams think about, and it's definitely a place where we're going to.
Yeah, it's an exciting future. One thing that I know comes up for a lot of this stuff, and I certainly don't want to let it go unaddressed, is, a lot of the concerns people have when it comes to AI. It's things like, there's hallucinations, there's obviously privacy and security and data concerns. How are you thinking about this within the context of all of these things that we're talking about?
Yeah. So this is really, really important, especially dealing with people data, which is very, important. And moving from regular dashboards to the world of AI that is less deterministic is something that we really take seriously. So first of all, we have the permission in place, and it's something that it's really engraved. It's really part of our core system, the way our permissions work. And we have really robust set of permissions. So making sure nobody see an accident and not letting the AI, the model decide what types of data you can and cannot see. So this is something we really take care in a much more foundational level of the system. And also we do a lot of tests. We have our internal evaluations and alerts, and we, like you said, having knowing the HR teams and knowing what people are asking for and what they need and what maybe they don't want to see because it's too sensitive. This is something that we're really defining closely with our partners and from our research to make sure nobody see anything that they don't need to see, and the data is accurate. Yeah, and the vibe reviews that we have is really exciting, because then it's a bit of a different story than the agent, because the vibe is building the screen, building the tab, the dashboard, but the data is your data. So it's also something that we are really excited about.
Yeah. Well, look, I know, I've been granted access to it, and I've been having a play with it, and some of the things that it can do is pretty incredible. I mean, the other day I recorded myself and I did a post about it, but about generating a set of salary bands, and it was from the data that we already have with our existing employees, and using that to build some ranges, and you can put a couple of assumptions in there around how broad you want them to be. But it was incredible. I put one prompt in, I waited a few minutes, and then all of a sudden I had something where previously I had nothing. So the ability to go from zero to, even if it's 50 or 60% of the way there, is such a huge head start compared to what that experience is like in the past. So yeah, it's an exciting feature, and I'm certainly excited to hear more about how that evolves and how the agentic stuff comes to play as well. Let's bring this to a close. So Shani, I guess last question from me. Again, you've got all of this insight, not only from your role, from the research, from the conversations that you're having. If you think ahead 12 months from now, what do you think are some of the things that the people leaders can do to really lean into this future that we're describing and kind of not get caught flat-footed?
So I think the most important thing is to just start and play, and don't be intimidated by the fact that it's called AI, or like very tech people using it. Jump in. There's so many resources online. Just try, play with it, see what you get, and don't be afraid of it. Don't wait till somebody tell you have to change, because then it's going to be already too late.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Ahead of the curve.
Yeah, there's so many people out there talking about, I've made $1 million with AI. And it's like, I think you can't let that sort of stuff distract you. And it's just a case of starting small, one foot in front of the other, trying it out. And it's just getting familiar with it. I think that's the only thing that's going to help people be less intimidated by it and actually start to see some real progress from it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I think that you don't need to have a whole team of agent running your household as step one. You just need to jump right in. And as a product person, the advantages I see with those tools, you just need to speak with it and tell it what you're interested in. And it's the same question you may have with your analyst that you're waiting for to make a report for you. So just like talk to it, play with it, see what's going on, and it's very addictive. So when you start, you kind of stop.
Start the snowball rolling. Well, this has been a super insightful conversation. Shani, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for jumping on and sharing some of your insights with us.
Thank you, Matt, for having me.
Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Foundation Series. Make sure to head over to our website to subscribe to the Foundation Series for monthly editions featuring future interviews on startup compensation. In each edition, we'll explore the different strategies, trends, and challenges faced by startups around the world. If you have a burning topic you'd like me to cover or a standout guest that you want to hear from, drop me an email so I can dive deeper into the compensation topics that matter most to you. Join me next time as we continue to uncover the strategies and practices driving success in global tech startups around the world. Thanks for listening.